we possibly may even get a chance to have that story. Furby, the fire prevention mascot.
I tell you what, we need to move on. And
we don't have the people to go out to the daycare center 6, 8, 10 times a year to teach, and the repetitive teaching that's necessary for a child to learn anything. The daycare people do. They have their children 5 days a week, maybe even more often. If we can get them interested in, motivated to teach fire safety and help us develop some materials to do that with, they have those children. They can repeat it enough times so that it will be learned.
Get your tag number on that, run you a 28. Like Captain Clark, I want to show them where the car is.
Norman Haber is either an eccentric old fool or he's got something really big. That statement was issued in an edition of Business Week magazine in a report explaining Haber's new machine. The method is called electromolecular propulsion. While the name and the process is complicated, the end result is quite simple and could be, according to Haber and other medical authorities, quite useful in determining future heart disease and what to treat the problem with.
The test is so sensitive that you can virtually use it on a child 1 day of age and predict with high reliability what their tendency for a heart attack is at a later stage in their life.
In heart tests, such as Haber was talking about, the process is this. A sample of blood is taken from the patient and then run through the new machine. The blood molecules are then separated, as you see here with the ink, and then the problem areas can be easily spotted by lab technicians and doctors. The procedure was originally met with skepticism by the medical world as the 9-year effort in trying to patent the idea proves, but the machine will be ready for practical application this fall. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Once the bands are separated, they're read electrically.
Mike Ozenkop has been with the Moore School District for 7 years. His most recent job has been principal of Sky Ranch Elementary School. The school district has alleged Ozenkop turned in false expense reports after returning from a principals convention in Houston last February. The school district is represented by Eric Groves. He argued that the fired administrators had a meeting in the office of Assistant Superintendent Gene Ross, who had also been on the trip. Groves says they discussed turning in a false mill claim. Jan Calloway was another principal who went to Houston and then attended the meeting in Ross's office. Groves said Calloway turned in the others because of what she heard at the meeting.
She overheard them discussing what they should charge and in what range this charge should be, and they seem to be settling somewhere in the $15 to $18 range.
But Ozenkop's attorney, Lana Tyree, says Calloway is wrong. Tyree says the real conflict is between Superintendent Bob Spence and Gene Ross. She says Spence is trying to cost Ross his job by accusing him of telling Ozenkop and the others to falsify claims.
The man whom he wanted to remove from the school district, the man he wanted eradicated from his administration without cause, was being supported by virtually every administrator in his school district. They were denying the accusations that had been created against him.
The day ended with Groves questioning Ozenkop. They'll pick up there tomorrow. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the Oliver Hodge Building.
David Autry?
Yes, sir.
Elmer Heck?
The county commissioner scandal in Oklahoma has snowballed ever since the first kickback trial. The government considered that its weakest case against Blaine County Commissioner Orville Pratt. The commissioner was found guilty in less than a week. Since then, commissioner after commissioner has either pleaded guilty to kickback charges or was found guilty in court. To date, about 300 people have been implicated in the investigation, making the scandal the biggest in U.S. history. The latest to be indicted is former Oklahoma County Commissioner Frank Lynch. If convicted of the 30-count indictment, Lynch could be sentenced to a maximum of 210 years in prison and a $66,000 fine.
The surprise always has been is the magnitude of the conduct. It's amazing how many people really are involved.
U.S. Attorney Bill Price says the magnitude of the county government probe has been so great that other states are trying to do the same thing.
You're talking about the involvement of some 300 people in the state. There is obviously the same kind of conduct going on throughout the nation, and we've been happy to see the results of this case carried into other states.
Price says there have only been 2 acquittals since the kickback cases have gone to court. Of Oklahoma's 77 counties, only 6 have been untouched by indictments so far. The U.S. attorneys say despite the 2 not guilty verdicts, they feel there is little chance more acquittals are possible. Ed Stewart, Action 4. The Blackwell Police Department is running out of room while it must store slot machines and other gambling devices. Officials confiscated the games after raiding several local clubs. An investigation showed that gambling was allegedly going on at the Moose Lodge in downtown Blackwell, at the Backdoor Lounge near the outskirts of town, and at the more exclusive Blackwell Country Club. In all, there were about 18 gambling devices that police found. Besides slot machines, there were blackjack tables and electronic poker games. It took 2 separate raid days to confiscate all these items. Blackwell police have arrested 3 people who will be charged with operating a commercial gambling establishment. Authorities say they will not tolerate illegal gambling in Blackwell.
All we're trying to do is enforce the law. When the complaint is brought to us about gambling activities, then it's our job and our duty, and under state statute, we must investigate it and take whatever action necessary.
In one of the raids, police say they emptied out about $8,000 from the games. Eventually, all the machines will be destroyed and melted down. If convicted of the gambling charges, those involved face a maximum of 10 years in prison and a $25,000 fine each. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Blackwell.
Heavy spring rains in Oklahoma caused widespread flooding this year. The rain gauges that are used to determine the rainfall sometimes don't tell the whole story. But officials at the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and the National Weather Service are using a sophisticated radar, like the one we use here at Channel 4, and a digital computer to determine rainfall amounts more accurately. The reason the new system is so accurate is because it uses a computer to determine rainfall amounts all over the designated area, not just in specific areas, as with rain gauges. The new system can therefore determine flood levels more quickly and is actually less expensive than the rain gauges.
A good example of how it can save money is the city of Lawton needs to have information, some sort of lead time to operate the gates of Lake Ellsworth. And by going a more conventional route, they would need approximately 12 rain gauges in their watershed. 12 rain gauges would run somewhere around $36,000. By using the D-Radex information, it would only be necessary to have approximately 3 rain gauges, which would reduce the cost a tremendous amount.
While Springer admits it might take 10 years to perfect the system, in the long run he says it will be well worth it. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
If you've spent any time shopping lately, you know summer's leaving the racks and fall's arriving. It may seem somewhat premature considering the temperatures outside, but in actual fact, most stores have waited longer than normal to bring in the new lines. The reason, the average middle-income family just can't afford to buy ahead.
Yes, they first have to look at the things that puts bread on their table and their children need today, their immediate needs. And then they look for the long-range needs more so. I think that any one of us, if our salaries are cut, we're going to tighten our budget a little bit.
With that in mind, C.R. Anthony's has been holding back on its coat line. The only coats you'll find in this shop are on display, but they'll be in soon, and management says people will buy. People with money have been buying fall wear for some time. Ruth Myers began showing her line last May, and it's sold faster than employees can unpack it. But the economy's had its effect.
I feel that the rich were very frivolous when we had a lot of new oil money. Now I think they're looking for investment buying.
Despite the new trend, business is great in this exclusive shop. This fall's sales are up 22% over last year's, but good sales aren't limited to the more posh. Anthony's reports large profits also. The economy hasn't stopped Oklahoma City residents from buying, it simply made them smarter shoppers. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
According to a survey taken by the National Cattlemen's Association, in mid-June, retail prices on an average for 8 cuts of beef were selling for $2.43 a pound. Now those same cuts of beef sell for $2.30 a pound. These figures show that retail beef prices are down 13 cents a pound across the country.
Consumers are benefiting from the economic conditions in the cattle industry, Ben. We're experiencing today a break in the fed cattle prices of about $10 a hundred. They peaked out at $76 a hundred, and those cattle prices now are back down to $66. This translates into a reduction in the value of a beef carcass from $1.20 a pound down to $1 a pound. So those carcass values are off $1 a pound.
Freeney says there are 2 reasons for the drop in live cattle prices: the depressed economy and the oversupply of beef and cattle. Freeney predicts retail prices will increase in the next 6 months, but there won't be a big jump in prices. Ben McCain, Action 4.
Last year was a tragic year, according to fire department records. The main reason, 2 multiple fatality fires, one of which was at the Prince Hall Apartments. 3 children lost their lives when someone threw flammable liquids in their apartment window. In all, 23 people died in Oklahoma City fires last year, one of the highest totals ever. This year, the story's much different. With a total so far of 7 deaths, this could be a record low year. That's quite an accomplishment for the Oklahoma City Fire Department, considering there's been more fires this year than last, and 2 of those were at high-rise apartment buildings, the Regency Towers and the Tiffany House. No one was seriously injured in either fire. Bill Cooksey says the credit goes to the firemen's expertise as well as to the city.
During the last year or so, the City Council has passed ordinances requiring smoke alarms in apartments and hotels and motels. Last year to date, we'd already lost 6 people in apartments and hotels and motels. This year, only 1. So I think the legislation requiring more fire safety equipment and evacuation equipment has probably played an important part.
One word of caution concerning the low fire death total. The toughest months are still ahead. More people die in November, December, and January than at any other time of the year. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
The McKinley Park area is near downtown. One of the last things the outgoing superintendent wants to do is build a new $4 million elementary school in the downtown area near McKinley Park. To do that, 12 homes would have to be torn down. The plan is to use McKinley Park as part of the playground area of the school. The homes are older homes, but many have been completely remodeled to increase their worth. And for some people, like Emery Tees, who just moved in, moving out is going to be a big inconvenience.
It was sort of discouraging because, well, we only made 1 payment on the house. We only been here a month and a half, I guess. and we really didn't know what to do at the time. So we've been thinking about it over the past couple of days, and we have a meeting to go to, and we're going to really make our minds up what we're really going to do at the meeting, because it's really not affecting me really, because if I sell my house, I'm going to be moving. My neighbors across the street, it's really going to be a problem to them.
School officials understand the residents' concerns.
It's always difficult when you have to go in and acquire property where there are residential homes. And what we would hope to do is to make an offer that would be accepted by the people for a fair cash value for their property.
The school board will take up the issue at its meeting tonight. But the way it looks now, the homes will probably have to go. Bellishaw, Action 4 in the McKinley Park area.
The parkland for.
But I don't know what to say about that. But right now, I'm more or less undecided. I'm just gonna.
Martha Breckheisen has raised horses all her life. She tries to keep them secure and safe. That's why she was shocked when someone stole 4 of her horses valued at $20,000 out of this pen. On July 9th at 9 o'clock in the morning, the horses were stolen. That same night, they were sold at a horse auction in Salisaw. Martha's sister-in-law, Connie, couldn't believe it either. She has invested a lot of time and money in the horses, but that wasn't the only reason she became upset about the theft.
You know, you get a horse and you try to feed him up and train him to do what you want him to do, and you get a little attached to him. And, of course, the money value is something, but sentimental value, it's got a lot to do with it. And somebody just comes and takes them out from under you. It's a real shame, but we're happy to have them back.
Sheriff's deputies have been busy dealing with what they call a statewide horse theft ring. Carol Kane, who heads up the division, traveled as far as Clovis, New Mexico to round up some of the horses. Why this sudden rash of horse stealing?
It's all profit to a thief when he steals it, and there are several killing plants right here close in Texas that kills horses.
There are still dozens of missing horses from Oklahoma, and sheriff's deputies say they don't have the manpower to find them all. But they have developed such a good reputation of finding them, they hope to put a stop to this old Western-style crime, because right now, horse thievery is becoming almost as big a crime as auto theft. Bellishaw, Action 4, near Arcadia.
Every morning, Monday through Friday, for 8 years, Omar Page has driven for a carpool. There's been a lot of changes through the years, from a small car to a passenger van, and from a few riders to 7. But the advantages have stayed the same.
I enjoy, talking with the people on the way to work, visiting with them, and then this helps cover the gasoline expense and doesn't make driving to and from work so expensive.
Omar's kind of the captain of the carpool. For one thing, he's always the driver. And secondly, he's the only male.
Of course, all my riders are women. And these women, they don't enjoy driving in the heavy traffic, and they'd rather that I did.
Companies are now trying to generate the idea of carpooling to their employees. Everyone at Omar's carpool works at Kerr-McGee. Because they ride together, the company gives them free parking. The city is even endorsing the idea because of the high cost of road repair. Oklahoma City has its own agency for matching riders to carpools. They support the idea wholeheartedly, but warn it's not for everyone.
We try to impress on people that if you're carpooling with someone, you do have a commitment to another person. It's not as easy as just hopping in your car and driving off to work every morning. You don't have the flexibility that you otherwise would have, and you don't have the privacy.
Carpooling has worked for Omar Page. It's an economical and enjoyable way for him to get to work every morning. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Murder trials are nothing new for Joseph Paul Franklin. He was given 4 life sentences after being convicted in the sniper slayings of 2 Salt Lake City men. Franklin was just acquitted in Indiana of charges he shot black leader Vernon Jordan. Now it's Oklahoma's turn to prosecute the self-proclaimed racist. Nearly 3 years ago, a biracial couple was gunned down for no apparent reason at a shopping center parking lot. Investigators were stumped at first, but they slowly put the pieces of the puzzle together. 34 months later, prosecutors say they can now prove it was Franklin who pumped 5 shots into the couple as he hid in some trees across the street.
We have just, within the last 24 hours, learned for sure that we will be the next one to handle him. We have to contact the federal authorities, which we're attempting to do today, and determine the proper procedure to follow to get him back here.
The Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office isn't wasting any time on this case. They're making plans today to send a prosecutor to Indiana by the 1st of next week. Now, when that prosecutor gets there, he'll talk to federal officials and review witnesses. And if everything goes as planned, Joseph Paul Franklin will be here at the Oklahoma County Courthouse in about a month, ready to stand trial. Mark O'Neill, Action 4 at the Oklahoma County Courthouse.
There's a bill that's in the House right now, House of Representatives. It's called the Auto Content Bill. It's the H.R. 5133. That's on the House side, and on the Congress side is S. 2300. Now, we feel like that bill, in our eyes, will bring back 860,000 workers almost immediately.
The content legislation. That bill is before the Commerce Committee in the House, and I assume the counterpart. The content legislation is next to be taken up with hearings. We already had hearings in the Trade Subcommittee, and I hope that we can. Now let's face it, fair trade we're going after, and it's going to be trade that will keep our markets open in those areas we have to do. Beyond that question, let me say this. Let's assume we passed it off. Let's assume.
"22-year-old Charles Oscar Peters was arrested at his home Sunday night after extensive questioning by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. He appeared before Judge Merle Smith at the Logan County Courthouse for his arraignment.
You're charged under preliminary information in CRF 82-98 with murder in the first degree.
Peters was charged with first-degree murder, which means robbery has been ruled out as a motive in the case. Since the victim was Peters' 70-year-old uncle, it could have been connected to a family dispute.
Saying he wanted no help from his family, that he had no money and no property but a 1972 Plymouth, Charles Oscar Peters asked for a court-appointed attorney, and he was granted one. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Logan County Courthouse in Guthrie.
administration, we are trying very hard in a variety of ways. You know, a number of people have had those kinds of criticisms. Secretary of Commerce, gosh, there have been a number. I think that just sort of comes with the job. I'm not troubled really by those kinds of criticisms. It's the criticisms that suggest that I don't care about veterans that really trouble me, because they're incorrect in the first place, and second of all, they have the effect of eroding the confidence of veterans in the Veterans Administration as well as in me as administrator. So first of all, they're incorrect, and second of all, they...
I view it as being a tough race. Starting right after Labor Day, we're going to be working about 16, 18 hours a day for 60 days right up to the election.
You think it's going to be a close race? You have a big advantage in name identification. Why do you think it's going to be close?
I consider the district attorney's race maybe the most critical race this year, because we're having organized crime trying to move in. We've got a lot of very complex problems, and I think we need to have someone with experience and background to combat that kind of a problem. Therefore, since I do consider it a critical problem, whether it's close or not, I'm going to get out and work as hard as I can just to make sure that we stay in office.
Think it's going to be a rough campaign?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Morning, everybody.
I'm Sherry Sellers. Tom Daxon didn't waste time celebrating his victory. He sprang into action this morning with a press conference. At that meeting was a special guest, Neil McCaleb. Together, they declared a united Republican Party for this fall's campaign.
Tom Daxon's and Neil McCaleb's political philosophy has always been very, very closely aligned. Our differences have always been on limited, specific issues and not on basic political philosophy, so I will enjoy being a part of the Daxon campaign team in November.
We will certainly enjoy having you on our team.
Daxon's pleased that his past opponent has joined his ranks, but he's even more pleased by his new opponent's announcement that he'll run on his record. The Republican candidate says Nye's record is lacking.
There's been very little leadership in holding down the growth in government spending. We've had more increases in government spending in the last 4 years than we've ever had in state history, and regardless of how you want to measure that. There's been very little leadership in reducing taxes. There's been very little leadership in addressing the problems of county corruption. There's been very little leadership in addressing the problems in the mental health department. There's been very little leadership in addressing the problems at the Department of Human Services. There's been very little leadership on the patronage issue, on many other issues facing our state.
Daxon has challenged Nye to discuss these issues in a series of debates. Details are now being worked out between the two candidates for a televised debate, but no announcement has been made. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
The absolute biggest factor are the people that help me. The absolute biggest factor of all is the volunteers. We got the best volunteers of any candidate in the whole state. And I'm not trying to put down the other candidates and their team, but we got so many good people across the state of Oklahoma that hit the streets for us, that went store to store and door to door all over the state of Oklahoma. Hard working, good people, and you can't be beat. I'm convinced of that.